If you read something in the fine print that you're not sure what it is, ignoring it in the labor reporting space will consistently come back and bite you in a big way along your profit margin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Prevailing Wage Report, where we promise it's certified. Before we dive in, if you like the podcast, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe on YouTube or on your preferred podcasting platform. Today, we are talking about the nuances between Denver and Colorado. So, Heather, a lot of contractors are familiar with federal regulations, but state laws can be a whole different beast entirely. Broadly speaking, how does Colorado prevailing wage differ from the federal Davis-Bacon Act requirements?
Sure. So on a high level, there's the federal requirements are pretty standardized across the board. At the state level for Colorado, there's a lot of nuances. It's dependent on what the agency wants as far as forms, how you submit, the documentation that's required. And then when you get down to, say, specifically Denver, it's even more nuanced than the state level.
So then once a contractor understands the state level and then going into local hurdles, when layering city and state rules, what are the key Denver versus Colorado compliance requirements that you see contractors missing?
Sure. So I know we've talked about this before. Trade classifications. It's the topic that just keeps coming up. I used an example before and it still stands. You need to know the differences between the state and the local, specifically Denver, definitions for trade classifications. That's where a lot of the pain points start and end. Once a company understands the trade classifications they need to be using, they can move forward with more confidence. But if they're not sure, then that lack of confidence feeds into the rest of the project, and overall it just goes worse. At some point you can pivot, but until you pivot, it's just not going to be positive. So trade classes, always.
Of course, it's always back to the trade classes. So does the type of project change the rules? So, like, for example, what are the compliance differences between transportation, utility, and like public works projects in Colorado?
Sure. So there are nuances between different categories of construction projects. An example in Colorado would be for the renewable projects. There are grants out there, and those reporting requirements are very specific for renewable projects. And if you look at in the same state of Colorado at infrastructure projects like bridges and highways and tollways, they have their set of requirements. There's overlap, quite a bit of overlap, that if you don't look close enough, they look like twins, but really they're not. There's documentation differences. There's how the trade classifications are explained. There's project goals that are different. It's one of those, if you take a quick glance, you'll think they're identical. But in reality, when you actually look at it, they're faking you out every time. So there are some nuances. On renewable projects, a lot of them have apprentice requirements. On Department of Transportation projects, for the CDLE, there's a lot of apprenticeship utilization requirements as well, but it's all in the fine print of how you utilize and report those apprentices, what documentation you need.
Is there any kind of quick guides available, or like hot tips, little things that somebody who may not be able to tell the difference could be on the lookout for, to make sure that, at that glance, they don't make a massive mistake?
Sure. So I know that the state of Colorado offers a lot of guides, as well as the city of Denver. There are some wonderful resources out there. The difficulty that companies have mentioned to myself and my team with these guides are they involve a lot of jargon, and there's a lot of information in there when that has to be weeded through. In reality, clients just want to know what action items they need to do, like checklist. These are the things I need to get done. So that's something we help contractors with. I know the city of Denver as well as the state have their guides, absolutely wonderful resources. Do they have to be as detailed as it lists in there? Yeah, probably they do. For those that work in this space, we can boil it down to a checklist. My team has a checklist that we use internally. I don't know if I've seen an external checklist for these types of projects, but I don't know if a checklist would be appropriate for just everybody, because if you don't understand what that item is, how do you check it off the list? So it goes back to using the guide. So it's a mixed bag there. Yes, there is, but would it be efficient and effective? I'm not sure. But if you have the guide, would that be efficient and effective? I don't know. It's very specific. I use a combination of both. I know exactly what is needed, and I will reference the city or the state guides to see what updates have happened, like labor rates. Those are pretty consistently updated. I want to know those things. If new regulations pop up, I want to know that. But as far as the checklist goes, yeah, it's pretty consistent. I just do the same things.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. For everybody listening, if you're enjoying this conversation and want to stay up to date on prevailing wage compliance, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube or your podcasting platform. So with these different rules, you often have different groups watching you. How should contractors navigate multi-agency compliances without getting completely overwhelmed?
The fairy tale answer would be getting all of the requirements per agency and then smashing them together. That's the fairy tale answer. The reality is you do the best that you can. You do need to get all of the agency requirements. There's quite a bit of it that overlaps between the different agencies, but it's the nuances that will trip you up every time. And that's where, when you look at everything side by side, you'll see. And if you read something in the fine print that you're not sure what it is, ignoring it in the labor reporting space will consistently come back and bite you in a big way along your profit margin. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. So then, focusing specifically on those Denver infrastructure projects, what are the biggest prevailing wage risks that contractors significantly and frequently overlook?
So I know we keep mentioning this, and I know trade classifications. I cannot mention that one too often. It's frustrating for a lot of agencies because they see the same issues over and over. And doing the work up front to verify what trade classification or getting clarification on a trade classification, doing that work up front will save so much time. But some companies don't understand the nuances. And some companies think, oh, well, I'll fix that later. And then later comes and you're like, no, you've actually made quite the mess with this. You have to redo it. That would be the first one. The next one would be not understanding the reporting requirements. When you're working on a prevailing wage project, it's not the same across the board. Different agencies, like for example, in Denver, there are different agencies that have prevailing wage requirements. They're not all the same. They need to be understood on their own merits of what's required. Yes, there's a lot of samesies in there, but there's also enough nuances that, again, it'll take a bite out of you every time, and it's consistently a profit margin. And that's without the fines and penalties and other things on top of that, but that initial bite. So you want to understand those things.
Yeah, no, that doesn't make sense. So when those risks eventually turn into a reality and someone maybe makes a mistake and an audit is coming down the line, what top compliance mistakes actually trigger an audit, and what can the results be from one of those?
Sure. So my team and I have a standard procedure when we're working in Colorado and Denver. And that is to work with the assumption of not if a project will be audited, but it will be audited consistently. Denver is very fast at their feedback. They want consistent reporting, not weekly reporting, consistent reporting. And then the state of Colorado is kind of a mix between they want consistent, but they could do weekly, depending on what agency. And then at the federal level, they would like it reported weekly. So what we're seeing is the specifics per agency is the struggle, and then each agency has a way that they apply those fines and penalties to the project, and it's not consistent across the board. On the federal level, you can say A plus B equals C, here's where we're at the agency level in Colorado and specifically Denver, it's very nuanced. The agencies have more of a voice. So that means the answers are more varied as well. So that's why when we work with our clients, we're very consistent in saying these are the best practices when you're estimating or bidding on a project. So that way you can get as much information as possible that then feeds down the line. And then you can avoid these concerns, because if you tell me this is a federally funded project that has state funding and it's in Denver, Colorado, I'm like, key things are already in my head of, okay, this is required and this, we need to verify this. But I know the requirements for each of those areas on my own. And then I've worked with those three being combined, or maybe two of the three combined. And I'm like, okay, here's some pain points. But if you're new in the space, figure it out for each of them and then figure out where your pain points are going to be. And I know where the standard pain points are for a lot of my clients, but it doesn't mean it's for every one of my clients. It's for specific, this is what I run across. So, and then if you do it right, some agencies understand that you're doing the best you can and you've shown that you're trying to do it as well as you can, and they may decide, okay, don't worry about paying the fine or penalty. Whereas others are like, absolutely not, pay it, no negotiation.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of variation in there.
Yeah, that sounds like there's a lot of variation. So what are the common pain points that you see when you're dealing with, a multi-level project that has all these different little intricacies combined? What are those little pain points that people are experiencing kind of every project?
Sure. I bet you can guess the first one.
Classes.
Yes, the trade classifications. That one, I was working on a project a couple years ago, and it was a city of Denver project, and it had federal funding. It did have state funding as well. The state funding, we didn't have any hiccups. It was the difference between the trade classes at federal, for the federal definition, as well as the city of Denver definition. That was where the struggle was for a specific set of trade classifications, which were all in the same scope. And so that was a huge pain point. And it happens pretty consistently because what was being reported at the federal level was accurate. It was accurate, but because for example, they don't have concrete finisher in the state of Colorado. They do, but it's called something else. So when it was reported, let's say this example, it's reported at the federal level as that it cannot be. It's the same person doing the same tasks, but it cannot be called as a concrete finisher for the city of Denver. That doesn't work. So something like that. I've seen that, and it happens pretty consistently for companies that actually have a lot of projects that have federal funding, state and or local, like specifically Denver. They have features in their software, but they have to be consistent with setting up their labor reporting on these types of projects and make sure and include the different trade classifications, all the different names. It's very much like having a pet. Has its actual name and then all the nicknames. So they have to get those different names set up So that way, when they report at the federal level, it's called the proper names. And at the state level, it's the proper names, and then down to the local. So I would say that would be the biggest one that I run across. And then companies ignoring one of the sets of requirement. That would be the other one. They see that it's a federal project, but they forget that it's potentially a city project as well. And they think they're fine, but they're not. So like the city of Denver and the state of Colorado, they ask for more rigorous information and more detailed information on fringes than they do at the federal level. Not that the federal level can't ask, but the state and city level do ask consistently. Federal's maybe, state and local is a for sure. So that's another element.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Okay, so it is time for our episode's Would You Rather. So, would you rather be able to instantly teleport anywhere in the world, but you can only bring whatever fits in your pockets, or fly first class for free anywhere, but you still have to deal with the actual travel time and all the intricacies of airports?
Can I teleport more? Like, is it consistently teleporting?
You can consistently teleport anywhere you want to go, but only things that fit your pockets. So, laptop, it's not fitting in your pockets. No backpack allowed.
I would have to say I would teleport because I'm very much going to date myself, but I'm thinking of I Dream of Jeannie. You can just like go to all these cool places, but then always sleep in your own bed, I guess. And then like as far as the laptop and whatnot, it's all online. So
Yeah.
maybe
As long as you have a phone, you got access to all your documents, you got access to your cloud.
right, unless you have those pants that were really popular years ago that they were huge and they would fit a laptop in them. The really baggy
Yep.
pants. That could be possible. Maybe I just no, I would teleport. I would do that. First class flying would be amazing, but then you still have to deal with all the stuff that goes with that. And why do you have to travel with all that stuff? Because you're going to spend hours traveling and you can't teleport home quickly. So
Yeah, I would go teleporting. I'll come back, work for a while, get just set yourself up. You can just go boom, boom, boom. You're there and
yes,
back, no worries.
I would do that. And realistically, if you forget something when you're traveling, you can just purchase it there.
Th-
So it's
this is true.
and I'm from the Midwest. We can layer like nobody's business. So that's what I would do. If I was planning on staying overnight, I would just put more layers on, put my toothbrush in my pocket. I'll be good to go.
Exactly. So
Purchase the
then
rest of it there, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, I would. That's what I would absolutely do. So then to wrap things up, with some actionable advice. We know that sub-tier partners can be a major liability. What is your top tip to general contractors to manage subcontractor compliance risks on these Colorado public works projects so they stay audit ready?
Sure. My top tip would be whatever the general contractor is required to provide as far as reporting goes, also is required for their lower tiers and their lower tiers and all the tiers below them. We hear quite often, oh, well, this is required for us. Is it required for our lower tiers as well? And pretty consistently, the answer is yes. Yes, it is required for the lower tiers as well. There's very few things that do not flow down on prevailing wage project requirements from the top level all the way down to the lowest level of subcontractors. So that would be my top tip.
Perfect. So thank you, Heather, for joining me. And for everybody joining us, whether you are listening or watching on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're active in this space and you want to surround yourself with others, make sure to head over to our community portal and apply for an exclusive community for professionals navigating the exact same space. Thank you, Heather, for all of your information today.
Thank you for having me.